I've been almost 50 years now teaching at post-secondary level. And without exception in the universities that I have taught, philosophy departments have been the ones that have been the most underrepresented in the humanities by women. And there are, in the 20th century, 2 or 3 dozen very exceptionally gifted women philosophers. Hannah Arendt, you probably heard of, Elizabeth Anscombe, Simone de Beauvoir. In the 19th century, I include her as a philosopher, George Eliot. In our time, more still alive and practicing, Luz Irigaray, Julia Kristeva, the Bulgarian, Susan Langer, the great esthetician, Iris Murdoch, whom you know as a novelist, but also held a chair of philosophy at Oxford University. Ayn Rand, you know, I don't know how many of you know Martha Nussbaum, still alive and still very much on bestseller lists in philosophy departments. And the woman who started it all at the end of the 18th century, Mary Wollstonecraft, whose great book, Vindication of the Rights of Women, provided the intellectual foundation for many of the great books that came out in the second wave of feminism in the 1960s and 70s. I don't have to, and I'm not going to take or waste your time with offering quotations from the great philosophers, from Aristotle, Plato, all the way up to Schopenhauer, Hegel, and Nietzsche. Thank goodness that was about the end of the misogyny in philosophy. But all the great philosophers that we have studied, we who have philosophy degrees, all had very negative things to say about women, without exception. It's very strong in Schopenhauer, and who spoke about the limitations of women's minds, and that's why they're not philosophers. One of our speakers tonight is an expert in the area of sex and gender, and I know that one of the things that she likes to talk about is the difference between sex and gender. All I have left to say then is what a great regret it is as a lifetime teacher in the humanities that the subjects which are of such value, especially to women, have been so underrepresented by women speakers, such as issues of class and work, issues around education and the skin trade and pornography, laws as they reflect issues surrounding pregnancy and birth and medicine, the philosophy of law as it reflects on how legal structures affect the material condition of women, rape laws. I'm old enough, I don't know, you guys aren't probably enough, but I'm old enough to remember in North America that a raped woman had no shield. That when she went to court, her whole past was open to the court. And it was only not until I was in my 20s that the rape shield law was brought up. And still, as many of you know, in many parts of the world today, a raped woman is considered the perpetrator of the act. Reproduction and family laws and children's rights. The philosophy of language and how language affects images of women. Philosophy of free speech and the line between hate speech and misogyny and free expression. These are all issues which, if there isn't a representation of the woman's voice, it is not going to be fully developed. Issues surrounding religion, equal rights, the consequences of sexism and discrimination, issues surrounding social power and the need for affirmative action, issues around, let's get right up to date, cloning, stem cell research, and reprogenetics. Women have to be represented in these very controversial and very contemporary philosophical issues. Well, tonight we have 4 very thoughtful women who are here to talk particularly about their own interests in the arts. And I could have mentioned aesthetics earlier too as an area of philosophy which would be very much enriched, as it has been enriched by the very fine woman philosopher Susan Langer, who, if you don't know her work, her aesthetics is, I think, unparalleled. Susan Langer, L-A-N-G-E-R. Bernadine Fox, Carol Metz-Murray, Catherine Murray, and Ilse Beatrice are all with us tonight. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, to give a brief background on their biographical background, and then each of them will make a statement. And then after 7:30, we will be having interaction between the audience and the speakers.